Hey everybody, Fight Club Pubs here, and welcome to GVN Live's add-on addendum little portion of the show that is not airing live.
The
This is
GVN expansion pack.
it's
Only $2.99.
no $29.99 season pass.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so here we go. Pretty much this is a topic we unfortunately left out of our last live show. So this one is going to be all about Mark's experience with Namco Bandai, which is going to most likely be an exciting experience for him to share with us. So, Mark, if you would so kindly, sir.
Sure. So the first thing I want to mention is we went up to Manhattan, myself and a friend of mine, to go check out what has kind of become a yearly tradition with Bandai Namco, where they run kind of a presser at the Bryant Park Hotel, and they just have about anywhere from 10 to 15 games set up to allow press-type folks to check them out. Manhattan in the summer sucks. Seriously, it's humid, it's gross, it's the dirt worst. I don't recommend it. But the setup that they have there is generally pretty great. It's just games just lining all of the walls and then different people to hopefully help you out with things. Unless you make the mistake that I keep making every single fucking year I register for this thing, and you keep picking 3 p.m., which is the time that fucking Hip Hop Gamer goes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want to note, for the record, I've been there 4 times now with the guy, and he legitimately seems like a good guy. Like, if you're listening to this, HHG, you seem like a legitimately cool dude. My friend asked you about your Gold LeMay Legend of Zelda backpack, and you seem legitimately personable. You seem like a nice guy. Do you need to bring so many fucking people? Honestly. There's like 4 different people there, and I don't know if they're just all friends and they go together, if they just like meet up, but he has a large entourage of people that just take up an inordinately large amount of space and the attention of multiple of the Bandai Namco staffers. It's a big pain in the ass. And I'm just saying, man, I work late. I don't want to get up and go to New York at 9 o'clock in the morning. Help me. Help me. Please.
Help
I have nothing to offer that guy. I can't help him with anything. Just help me. Please. Beyond that, let's talk about the games that I experienced while I was there. The first game that they put into my grubby little waiting mitts was a sequel to Pac-Man Championship Edition, which, I mean, it's Pac-Man Championship Edition. If you've never played it, it's essentially kind of like a speed-based, time-attacky sort of Pac-Man game.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a thing where Pac-Man has to rapidly move around the environment, eating up dots, and bumping into sleeping ghosts, which will then attach them to like a ghost worm that's going around the environment. If you bump into the side of the ghost worm will just push you off. If you bump into the front of it or into other offensive ghosts, you can bump them away a couple of times, but then they'll get hostile and they'll kick your ass after doing it so many times. Your objective is to eat as many of the little dots as you can to spawn a fruit, which you can then eat, and it will take you to the next stage. And you repeat this process until the game eventually spawns a power pellet. You eat the power pellet, and then the entire fucking ghost chain turns into a big blue ghost chain, and you have to run up on it and eat it. Accomplishing this successfully brings you on to the next set of stages. Failing it fails you out, and you get your final score. It obviously wasn't a final build, but it seemed like it was pretty close to being final, and from what they told me, it's going to be coming out probably sometime in the fall. It felt like a natural progression from the Championship Edition formula, and I thought it was pretty good. If you liked Championship Edition, it's worth checking out. If you've never played Championship Edition, it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you are a fan of the idea of Pac-Man but haven't tried out anything that he's been attached to in a while. If you didn't like Championship Edition, it's not going to do anything for you, though.
Mm-hmm.
The next game that I got a chance to check out, and I know the game that everybody wants me to talk about, but fuck you, I'm going to make you wait for it for last. Yes, the whole thing. Kiss my ass. Was a game called Winning Putt, which is a free-to-play PC golf game that is actually available now. And I enjoyed the demonstration of it so much that I went home and I downloaded it, and I play it every now and again when I have a few free minutes. It's basically an MMORPG version of Mario Golf, but like a little more serious. So you'll go onto a course, and they'll give you some stamina that will allow you to play a course. And the higher your stamina is, the better you perform. The lower it is, the worse that you can potentially perform. And as you play, you go up levels. You earn cash for completing objectives and for playing holes. And going up levels also allows you to purchase better clubs, which gives you better performance on the course. The game does not have a time-limiting mechanic, so unlike your standard free-to-play model in your typical freemium game, it does not limit you on how much time you can spend playing in a day. Obviously, there's a cash incentive to the game. Obviously, they would like it if you would pay money, but the representative that was there made it a point to tell me several different times the current person who's winning in their tournaments, because they actually do have routine tournaments that they run, has bought nothing and is consistently kicking the shit out of everyone at like their higher tier tournaments. So it's very much a game where you literally do not have to pay money to be successful. You can't really just pay to win in this game. Skill is a big part of it. Understanding where the ball is going to land, how to play golf in general, what the effects are of wind, etc., so on, is a big part of it. The game caters to players whether you're completely terrible at any type of virtual golf or whether you're a master at it. And for the most part, mechanically, it works out pretty well. The system requirements are also not very top tier. If you like golf in general, I feel like it's a pretty fun little MMO deal, and you can like have friends play with you and play rounds of golf and whatnot. I don't think it's the kind of thing that's going to appeal to a mass market just because it's golf without colorful cartoon characters associated with it. But I like golf, so I thought it was pretty fun. Next game on the list, Dragon Ball Z, Xenoverse 2, which it's Dragon Ball Z, Xenoverse, but with more characters.
Isn't that a good thing?
I don't know, honestly, and this is the thing that I think kind of sells the experience for me as somebody who actively did not play the first game. I was able to figure out this game with no help and no instructions inside of a round of play. Just guessing with perceivable consequence and trying to figure out how stuff worked.
That's not bad, I guess.
No, it's a complex enough game. There are different combinations that you can utilize to great effect, and I feel like the game is structured in a way that things work and they make sense, and you can like press different buttons and combinations to figure out what things are supposed to do without feeling like you're flailing. It's not a heavily complicated fighting game, but there is complexity there that you can learn over time. It replicates the feeling of fighting in a Dragon Ball Z style universe fairly well, with characters dashing around in the air and all over the place and whipping out like fireballs and kamehamehas and all this other shit relatively easily. I didn't get a chance to play with too many of the characters that they had available, and I didn't recognize any of them outside of the Time Patroller, which would be your custom character that you could design however you wish, Trunks, and Goku. But for the most part, it looks like it's roughly about as faithful a Dragon Ball fighting game as you're going to get. And if you like the first one, I'd say this is probably a pretty good follow-up to it.
The collector's edition looks pretty cool too, with like the bust of the Super Saiyan Goku, which looked pretty nice. But $130 seems a little steep.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that.
Yes, you are.
No.
You know you're going to end up getting a free copy.
No. Maybe a digital version of it. I'm not physical. So, the next game to talk about is Tales of Berseria, which I don't really have a lot to talk about. The demo that they presented to us was entirely in Japanese, which is not helpful. And the person who was manning the station for that was doing stuff with Hip Hop Gamer. So I had no clue what the fuck was going on. I mostly just played the combat sections of it, and the combat feels pretty engaging. You can swap between the different characters in battle, and the battle system is as action-oriented as you would expect from a Tales game. Combat is, in general, fast and furious, and I was able to figure out some elements of it, like there are different characters that when you press up and down can be swapped between, it looks like, in the core party. I couldn't figure out how to actually do the swapping, but I could, move them around to indicate that they were available. And the actual combat mechanics seem fairly intuitive, where you can kick your character into a kind of overdrive that allows them to deal additional damage, but otherwise it's just spam a button and your character will just unleash 80 bazillion hit combos on the enemies and kick the shit out of them.
Is it satisfying, though?
For an RPG combat system, yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't know if it would hold up for an entire 40 to 100 hour game, but again, I only played about 20 minutes of it, so there's only so much that I can say as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm.
It felt interesting and engaging, which is all I could really ask for from it from the time that I spent with it. And if I had been on the fence, it probably would have sold me on it, just having that experience. For fans of the Tales franchise, I feel like, if nothing else, mechanically and aesthetically, it's definitely a game you're going to want to look at, because it did look really damn good, too. So,
Well, it's a Tales game. I can't imagine they do it too much wrong, to be honest. But...
yeah.
All right, and what else did... Actually, before you continue on, did you manage to have a chance to talk with, any of the staff members of the event? Was there anybody there that were, maybe PR reps, maybe even a developer or somebody was there?
It's mostly just PR people. I got to talk to people about the particular games that they were representing, but unfortunately that's really about it. They don't send anybody like a dev or anything like that to represent any of these things. It's entirely just PR people showing off the games.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much going down a list of stuff they can talk about, correct?
Pretty much, yeah. For the games where people were staffed, I was able to ask a few questions. Staff kind of vacillated back and forth as needed, so for half of the games here, I didn't get a chance to talk to literally anybody. So, the next game I checked out was the new Sword Art Online game that's coming out. I don't remember what the subtitle of it is, but to be perfectly honest, I kind of don't care.
I was about to say you don't care.
Well, no, here's the thing. The last time I went last year, they had a Sword Art Online game, and that game felt like I wanted it to feel, which was it felt like a dot hack game. The PR person who was there, I mentioned to her that it felt like a dot hack game, and she seemed very pleased that that was the inference I took from it, because that was where they were going with it. I felt like it was a neat concept. I felt like it was a neat execution. I felt like it was well done. This game feels like WoW.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have a group of 4 party members that are just running around doing whatever it is that they're doing. There's a action bar located at the bottom of the screen with each of the hotkeyed options that you have available to you. You can swap between them and select an activity as you deem it appropriate, and just have your characters go into battle. It feels like a Final Fantasy XIV or a WoW.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you actually have the action bar at the bottom, or is it all how's the combat on it?
There is an actual action bar at the bottom that shows all of the different hotkeys you can select from. You can swap between them and push a button to execute, but generally there is a standard attack button, a jump button, an arts button that's located on the triangle, and then a use skill which does whatever you have on the action key. So you can swap between all of the different things that are there, press circle to use whatever skill you've highlighted, but attack, jump, and the art are automatically mapped to the face buttons no matter what. So you can consistently just manually attack if you want to do that.
Nice.
Here's the thing. There were something like 20 skills that you could swap between, and this might be just them showing off a demonstration of the total amount of skills once you've maximized your character or whatever. Though in Sword Art Online, the characters start off at a ridiculously high level anyway, so I'm guessing maybe all of those skills are available from jump. I didn't find the mechanics of play in any way, shape, or form interesting or engaging. It felt like the clunkiest possible version of an MMO converted into a single-player game imaginable. And the way that the prior Sword Art Online games had worked was, to me, a much more interesting and engaging experience. Maybe I'm wrong and the fans will love it. I certainly hope so, because, like I said, I liked the previous game for what it was. Maybe the final product will change my mind. But by and large, I just felt like it was entirely too convoluted. Combat did not seem particularly engaging. It just felt like somebody had seen MMOs in action and put together a game based on that. but never actually played any of them to understand why those things do what they do. And then I have one more game to talk about before I talk about the two main events here, which was a game called Necropolis.
Oh.
Necropolis. Why does that sound so familiar?
People have been talking about it in reviews in the past couple of weeks. But the major things to understand about it is that somebody looked at Dark Souls and said, hey, I bet we can apply that to roguelikes, and then tried to make that game.
Oh, God. Oh, God, that just sounds horrible, to be honest.
I was about to say.
So here's the thing. I love Dark Souls. I do. And I like roguelikes quite a bit. And if somebody could combine the structures and mechanics of Dark Souls with a roguelike, that'd be neat. This game is not that. The mechanics of Necropolis are very deliberate, which is a term that Jim Ross likes to use during cane matches, to give you an idea of how I mean that.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's not a friendly experience. Swinging your weapon is often a matter of pushing the button and then waiting for the animation to end. And you will quite literally get bum rushed by dudes pretty fucking quick.
So there's, like, no frame cancellations or anything like that to, like, get out of your swing real quickly for an evasive move or something like that?
No, it's very much a game that probably should have taken the randomization elements and structural concepts of a roguelike and applied them to the mechanics of something like a Dark Souls, and instead it's just this deliberate, clunky sort of experience where you're getting bum rushed by like 6 to 8 dudes, and even if you're funneling them through a doorway, you're just gonna get overwhelmed and killed because the way your characters attack is very slow and deliberately paced. Enemies can attack through your attacks, so there's no attack cancellation. And it's just a game that doesn't seem to understand the games that it's trying to ape or what they were trying to do. I had seen reviews in advance, and I thought, you know what, I'll come into the game, clean slate, I'll give it a shot. And I kind of hated it, actually. And, like, again, I love roguelikes. I'm playing Shiren the Wanderer for review now, and I think it's pretty damn good. I love Dark Souls. I've played all of the Souls games, and I think they're all perfectly fine to very great. No, I just fucking hate this. Like, I only played, like, about, 20 minutes of it, and no, I never want to play this again. Holy shit. It's just not an enjoyable experience. So...
when it comes to roguelike games, I'm not exactly... I mean, there's some games where I have no problem with... I prefer the roguelike feature to be more of a difficulty choice in a game. Like, let's say I played Diablo 2 enough. They have hardcore mode, which is literally like some of the first types of roguelikes in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got the games like, let's say, Rogue Legacy or... what was that? The sub-level 0, where you can do a lot of leveling in that game. Like, you can do a lot of exploration, and all of a sudden you die and you lose all that progress.
Yeah,
it's very frustrating.
Right, but that is a part of the experience, and I love those games for that part of the experience.
Yeah, for
I
some
just
games,
don't love
it
this
works like that.
particular game. Yeah,
I personally really, I mean, I'm not exactly a fan of just like roguelikes as a standalone game. I still think to this day it should at least be a difficulty option. I mean, does that sound fair?
There are some games that do something like that, but for others it's developing the games for the fans first and foremost, and I can respect that in either case.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of personal interest. Some people are going to love games that are exclusively roguelikes. Some people are not going to necessarily love that kind of stuff. It is whatever it is.
All right. So is that really it? That's all the games you got a chance to have your hands all over in the Namco Bandai event?
No, as I said, I've got 2 final games that I wanted to talk about here that are the main event, as to say. The first is probably going to be one that's going to be more interesting to you exclusively, and that's the English version of God Eater 2 Rage Burst.
Yes, and you have said amazing things about it. If anything, you make me want to go pick up that game, Mark, so please tell me all about it.
There's not really a lot to say. The text conversion is spot on, and the game, from the demonstration, did a lot to explain the mechanics of its existence, of its structure, of its design, than, the Japanese version did. I feel like the game in and of itself kind of works from that perceivable consequence perspective, i.e., you can figure out how the game works and what you're trying to do with it without it being a major pain. But with the English subtitling in place, it works so much better. The one thing I will say definitively is that I did not have a chance to hear very much of the audio because, again, it's a loud-ass environment and there are people all over the place. So it's hard to do something where the audio resonates with the player as much as you might like it to. But mechanically, it's still top-notch. It still plays great. The translation is working fabulous from what I could determine. And they've structured everything pretty damn well, I think, for the most part. I like it, and I'm really looking forward to the final release because I feel like it's going to be the game that's going to work for people who like the idea of Monster Hunter but just can't stand fucking Monster Hunter.
Bum, bum, bum.
That's a good one. All right. What was the last thing you got to play?
Just one of those little independent games that they release every now and again. You might have heard of it. It's called Tekken 7.
There you go.
Yay.
So, my first experience with Tekken 7 was walking up to the unit and watching a gentleman in the middle of his second round with Jin Kazama. He turns to me, says, "Would you like to play?" I said, "Sure," and he hands me the controller like I know any fucking thing about Jin Kazama.
Nah.
And it's just like, here you go. Do whatever. Fuck, all right. So, let's talk about Jin Kazama. He feels like he's getting to this sort of weird point between his Tekken 5, I want to say, iteration, where he had the incredibly weird mechanics and didn't necessarily work the way that you would have expected him to, especially after it's Tekken 4. Especially after in Tekken 3 he was just, Kazuya Mishima.
Yeah, he was pretty much like almost a clone of his dad.
Yeah, he's kind of in this weird mid-ground between being that clone and his weird mechanics from Tekken 4. So it works, and it's easy enough to figure out, but it's very difficult to really parse what you're trying to do with him when you haven't played as him in forever. I did okay. Second character I picked up was one of my personal favorites. I should note here, the demonstration build that they had 29 characters available in it, and all of them were ready to go, but you only get so much time when you're at these events. So I did check. Characters that they've announced recently, like Bob, were not in this build.
Yeah.
So,
Darn.
You love Bob, though.
I do love Bob, but I couldn't.
Everyone loves Bob.
I couldn't go to him. So, but it's 29 right now without the newest characters they've announced. So we're looking at a pretty damn robust roster, and I didn't see any significant double ups or duplicates. I did not see Eddie or Christy either, and I don't know if they've been phased out or if they're just being added in with the next round of updates.
Possible.
There were a lot of new characters or characters I didn't visually recognize outside of Lucky Chloe, who I was just like, nah, I don't want to play as her. So for the second round, I went for a character that I recognized since my other two mains were out that I could play reasonably well with Asuka Kazama. And she feels pretty much spot on to how I expected. All of the combinations that I utilized with her chained instantly and worked out really well. So the character feels very familiar. The final character I decided to jump into was very much, I looked at the roster and said, fuck it, go big or go home, and I dicked around with Akuma for a bit.
Yeah, there you go. How did those controls translate from Street Fighter to Tekken? I'm curious.
So, do you remember Street Fighter X Tekken and how the Tekken characters translated over to a Street Fighter game?
Yeah.
Pretty much the fucking opposite of that.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Akuma is badass. He's a little stiff, and I'm not 100% sure if it's just because I didn't know anything about how to play as him or what, but he's definitely a powerful character. He does have the fireballs and the Raging Demon available, interestingly enough. I was not able to pull it off because I don't know exactly how it works, because you know how it works in a Street Fighter. Low punch, forward, low kick, high punch. But there's no low and highs, it's left and rights, and it didn't work by going left, forward, left, right, you know? I don't know how that works, but the computer broke it out on me, so I saw it happen. And I couldn't really parse the fireball. Maybe I was just doing something wrong with it. But combination-wise, he feels as structured as anybody else. I feel like his high damage taken, high damage given mechanic is still in place. So he's very much authentic to his Street Fighter design. He looks great, and he looks great in motion. So for the most part of all the new characters, he was the one that was immediately appealing. I would probably not main him just because as a Tekken character, he seems a little slow and clunky. But again, they still have time to like do whatever with him, so maybe that will change. I felt like he was a good boss character because they had him be the boss in the demonstrations that they were running.
Yeah.
They also showed a couple of different. I didn't get to go into them, but outside of the versus mode that they kind of dump you into, they were showing that there's a full single player story mode. I don't know what that entails. I couldn't get anybody to talk to me about it, and the press kit that they gave did not have an explanation. I'm hoping that it's going to be the arcade beat 'em up mode from Tekken 6 again, but I don't have an answer on that one.
Okay. So here's a question. Do you think that the inclusion of Akuma and how well he fits into the Tekken universe, do you still think that might bring back the incentive for the game director Harada to resume work on Tekken Cross Street Fighter?
No.
No?
Absolutely not. I'm pretty sure they looked at it and they said, fuck this, and they just put Akuma in it as a mea culpa for the people who were expecting Tekken X Street Fighter and went on with their day. Akuma works great, but I'm imagining that Akuma is the culmination of a lot of time and effort. We're talking, they would have to translate that to 15 to 20 other characters. And even with the characters like Ryu, Ken, and Akuma, if they put them all in, great. But then you still kind of have to figure out where to incorporate somebody like Cammy or, Guile. And having too many characters with ranged combat against characters who don't have it, even in that 3D environment where you can strafe around it, kind of does give them an edge. Having Akuma in there as a quasi-boss character is kind of neat. Having 20 characters in there is not great. That said, the one thing I did notice, which I don't know if anybody has really talked about, was that they have a rage meter of sorts that kicks in when you're at 10%. And it gives you the ability to do one of two different things: Rage Art and Rage Drive. They explained it in the demonstration, but fuck me if I remember how to do it. I think it was like both punches at the same time or something. Essentially, how the two moves work is like this. The Rage Art is when you're stationary, you do a specific movement and press the buttons, and it's a super move. It's kind of like a game changer type thing where if you're down at that last 10%, if you can hit it, you're going to hurt the other opponent real bad. Of course, they can in turn unleash their Rage Art against you, but it is that opportunity to try and come back from a severe deficit or to seal a match if you're both really close, where you just do the motion and your character will unleash a multi-hit combo or a heavy move or whatever and take the opponent out. On the other hand, the Rage Drive is the same thing, but it's a running motion. So you dash into the opponent and hit them for high damage, which can potentially allow you to close a wide distance and hit for big damage. That one's a little bit more risky, obviously, because if you're running in and they block it,
You're
You're
screwed.
screwed.
But it also
Jinx.
has that opportunity of getting the enemy by the element of surprise. So it's I feel like it's an interesting addition. I don't know how well it's going to appeal to the tournament circuit who's used to not having that kind of shit in the games.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like by and large it's going to be something that will probably appeal to tournament players because it gives them that opportunity to try and come back from a severe deficit. So you can have those really interesting moments where somebody gets close to a victory and then drops it at the last second because they got hit with a rage art. Visually, the game is phenomenal. It is clearly a game that was designed with next-gen tech in mind. The environments look great. Character models look great. Characters will make visual changes as the stages go on, depending upon what they're exposed to in the environment, which is neat. The only thing I wasn't a fan of is that the game was showing some signs of slowdown, which I believe is because it was a demo version running off of a PC and not a final gold disc version. But there is the possibility that there may be some day one shenanigans there depending upon when they announce the final release date.
Well, they said, 2017 sometime, right?
I think they're aiming for this year, actually.
Really?
I could have sworn they said early 2017, but
They might have pushed it back. The last I had heard, they were aiming for this year. But if they pushed it back, it wouldn't surprise me. And frankly, with as many good fighting games as we've had this year, Street Fighter V notwithstanding, we don't need Tekken 7 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Tekken 7 is entirely welcome to dominate the charts for 2017. 2016, I've played at least 3 really good fighting games this year. I'm not going to die if I don't get Tekken 7, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's by and large, I feel like in the same way that Dark Souls 3 was the game that was the big focal point of Bandai Namco's presser last year, Tekken 7 was the big focal point of their presser this year. And I feel like it was a success.
Nice. And yeah, it's early 2017, it says, for Tekken 7 right now.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, is fine. It's last I had heard it was this year, but if they pushed it back, cool. If they can get the slowdown that I saw in the demo build ironed out, so much the better. I'm honestly it's whatever year it comes out in, so long as the slowdown is resolved, it's going to be fighting game of the year, without a question.
Nice.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to translate to big acceptance within the tournament scene, especially if Street Fighter V is gunning to be the lead in the tournaments. But I would say it's definitely going to give Street Fighter V a run for its money. It just feels great.
You think it'll probably be one of the better 3D fighters out there, especially now that's big competition is pretty much just dead or alive, and I'm surprised that they have yet to announce a new Soul Calibur, but again, Tekken Tokyo Game Show is just right around the corner, so they might still announce it then.
I don't feel like there's smart money in announcing a new Soul Calibur while you're still ramping up on Tekken. I would honestly let Tekken come out, get its press, and then announce your Soul Calibur. But I would imagine smart money is on them probably swapping to Soul Calibur sometime soon, considering that we've had a couple of, Tekken-type products in the past couple of years, and Soul Calibur was and is a money-making franchise for them.
Plus, they haven't released a Soul Calibur in God knows how long. Is there?
About 4 years.
Yeah.
And they've had a couple of Tekken games. So if Soul Calibur is still a viable franchise for them, which is possible, I would imagine that we're probably going to see it after Tekken 7 hits.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I mean, like, if we're talking, like, the Eastern style, mechanical chain combinations type 3D fighting games, look, I know you like DOA, and I liked DOA for a long while, but yeah, no, this game beats the shit out of DOA 5. Sorry.
We'll see.
I am kind of hit or miss with the DOA franchise at this point. I do think DOA 5 is fine, and I like the different options that they allowed console players if you wanted to be able to play the game but didn't necessarily want to drop $60 on the full experience. But honestly, I feel like purely from a mechanical structure, like in all respects, it is a game that is going to be more friendly for players to pick up that is going to capture the market. I personally feel like it is a more robust experience mechanically than DOA 5 was. Whether that translates to the community believing it, I don't know. But personally, so long as they can clean up the slowdown, like I said, it's definitely going to give DOA a run for its money, whether it wins or not.
Alrighty.
You mean Street Fighter?
No, DOA 5.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
Well, in terms of the 3D arena, that's not going to catch up to Street Fighter in terms of sales. Or actually, you know what? It might. It might. It's releasing on both
Considering-
platforms.
Right, Street Fighter 5 on one hand did a really good job with getting its name out there thanks to EVO, but its sales also fucking stagnated. Like it's not
Hard.
going anywhere. So it really depends on what EVO wants to go with as its top shelf game next year.
Mm-hmm.
If Tekken shows a strong enough performance in its first couple of months between critical response and fan response, I'm not going to predict anything because I don't know how far this stuff is dictated in advance or what could change it. But it's very possible that if the fan response is strong enough for it, we might see EVO headlined by Tekken next year.
Nice.
We'll see. Yeah, I mean, if you can get... I mean, Tekken always has some strong numbers, but, I mean, for the last few years, I mean, they've been weaning somewhere around 400 people or so. But that's not bad in any sense. Excuse me. So, anyway, to, I guess, wrap things up, is there anything you want to say about the event overall?
I kind of hope that when they do this next year, that I remember this conversation this time next year, and I book a time when Hip Hop Gamer is not there. Like I said, you're a great dude. Too much fucking space. Beyond that, no. By and large, even if I didn't necessarily love every game that was there, Bandai Namco is really heading in the right direction with what they're trying to release and what they're making available to the public. And honestly, buy God Eater 2 Rage Burst when it comes out. That's all I got.
He's already sold me on it, so I know I'm getting it.
Alrighty. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is our add-on feature for GVN Live, offline, after hours. You know what? I think I'm going to name this GVN.
dark.
You know what? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to GVN Plus. There we go. Our little after-hour segments. So thank you for tuning in for this.